What's up, everyone? Welcome to BJJ and Brews. I'm your co-host, Noah John. Today is episode 33 of the podcast, and Chris and I have a conversation before class on a Monday. That's about it. We cover a lot of funny stuff. It's a good conversation. I always say that, but I always think it's a good conversation. So I'll just leave it at that. Like, subscribe, share. We got some exciting stuff coming. We talk about a little bit at the very end, so if you stay tuned, you're going to hear a few things about what's happening and some of the cool changes. This week, there are no sponsors. If you are interested in sponsoring, especially if you're a brewery and that kind of thing, hit us up, bjjandbrews@gmail.com. But besides that, let's get to the podcast.
Crazy. Yeah,
so Chris has assumed the position.
Yeah, this is my...
You are supine.
Yeah, definitely. This is my comic reading position, so I'll probably get... I normally get comic wrist, but this is probably going to be mic wrist.
Do you fall asleep when you read comic books?
Yeah, there have been times, and it's like, I'll read the...
Your wife will see you like...
No,
you're
I'll
like
wake,
a grandpa there.
Because I buy like a damn like hardcover that's like 3 trades in one, and as I like get tired, it just like hits me in the face. So like, that's when I'll wake up and I'll, you know. So, I buy... Thank God I don't do this with like the omnibuses that are 50 issues, because I would need like a wizard stand to like to set that on, right? I'd look like a Pentecostal
or like those
preacher.
big
Like a lectern.
When's the last time you went to a library? Like, you know how they used to put
like
newspapers?
a dictionary, right?
Like they used to put newspapers like through a big wooden, like it was like a huge wooden rod that had a slit in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
yeah, so then it's like a pipe wrist almost.
I guess I need one of those.
So Chris, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. This is my first day. I haven't grappled since last Tuesday.
Very bad.
Oh my God, I feel
so let me ask you this: your wife Stacy and yourself were both pretty mindful around the pandemic. Now that the gym's open, how was the conversation between you and her to get back to training?
So that's... I think she kind of had it in her head that during the time of, you know, sort of like dictated quarantine that I would do that, you know, but now, because it's not, quote, like breaking the law, or because it would have been, quote, breaking the law if I had been doing it then, right? But now that we're past that point, I think she sort of knows that for the most part, and well, not for the most, for the some part, you and I have had a conversation about this. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. You know, whether or not I choose to do it out of respect to her that's dependent case by case. And I think she sort of knew that when we got the all clear from the government that like I'm back to doing jiu-jitsu.
Well, she definitely like you said that the minute it became, quote, legal, they opened up gyms.
Yeah,
she was
no problem.
Okay, very cool.
So like that's, you know, and my whole thing about like, I don't think for her, for example, the fear was ever of either of us or Connor getting COVID. It was more like, I don't want you to get fined $500 and be called a criminal or something, you know, like some sort of weird, like, you know, civil thing. If anything, she was fearful that if either of us got COVID, because of hell, like I said, we'd been seeing customers, or I'd been seeing some customers, you know, in an offhand kind of way, like they weren't actually allowed in, but like the fact that I'm in an office with 9 other people, like the chances are already higher by definition, because I don't know whether they're social distancing or not. Regardless.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. I think with anything, with this whole thing, it's kind of been a question of
who you really
you're familiar with a certain circle of people, and then maybe there's a comfort level there. Yeah. But then as you start going into, quote, more and more public spaces, like you go to a supermarket, you have no idea where anybody's been.
You can spread this course down all you want.
They're adhering to, like how often they wash their hands, all that stuff. How did it feel? How did it feel grappling from a physical point of view? How's your gas tank?
Pretty okay. I mean, like when I grappled. I grappled Tuesday morning.
You barely get above 30% anyway.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, yeah, maybe I was at 35. Who knows? I didn't feel like I gassed out. Just I think me staying constantly busy, just physically, whether I was doing jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, with my push-ups or just the weightlifting I've been doing has been keeping my level of fitness fairly.
What about your mind when it came to it? Did you feel out of sorts at the beginning? Like, what is this? Like, what grips do I grab? Like, did you feel?
No, like I think when you've been doing it for this long, like I'm not gonna get any better at jiu-jitsu, man. Like
Oh, come on. Yes,
I am what I am.
No,
like,
you're gonna get.
And
better
so,
at
like,
jiu-jitsu.
I just sort of reverted back to. I can tell you, I definitely reverted back to what I do versus the stuff that I've been working on in class. You know, like if that's any indication. It's sort of like the whole, like when you watch an MMA fight and, you know, the guy's like doing well or whatever it is. He's like some wrestler, but he's like, you know, started training with like Bang or like, you know, Trevor Whitman or something. And he gets clocked and he reverts back to like, I'm a D1 wrestler. I think like that's sort of like, I'm by no means a D1 wrestler, but I reverted to like
your bread
turtle
and
on the back guard.
Your bread and
butter.
Yeah,
my baby diaper guard.
Fair enough.
So that's where I've been jiu-jitsu wise, but it's felt good. Like I rolled with Brian McKenzie Tuesday morning, and Jamal and stuff, and like I played around with a couple different grips, but beyond that, like I definitely was back to where I was until I can kind of get back into class and get back into the swing of things like today to see what we're really working on in class. So I can
we're working on the wing sweep.
I saw that
Machado, baby.
I saw that. It's a it's like a sumigaeshi, but across the hip, sort of, right? Like. What is this new terminology? When did Paul start using that? Like, when do we actually start naming things?
Well, maybe it's a new leaf, man. New year,
so.
new leaf,
yeah, so we'll see.
New vibe, new energy.
How dare we try to communicate ideas via properly
and assign
coded
specific terms?
Yeah,
specific
like
thing.
that's
specificity. What?
Passing on information effectively. So the wing sweep I see into paper cutter choke. I think it is.
You can do a paper cutter. You could also go to an arm bar. Like you can end up an S mount, go to an arm bar.
I'm curious to learn that because I think that's a fairly new one to me. Like just in general, I think.
It seems super powerful, and he's teaching a system around it. Where, how about that?
Whoa!
Yeah. So you do this, and if they back up, then they're giving you the back.
All right,
you can also do an arm drag. You can also do.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's interesting to see
because you're so far off the center line.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Exactly. And the other big thing is it seems like cross grips are pretty powerful.
Yes.
I'm starting to see that now where there are a lot of really cool things people do with cross grips. And when people tie me up in cross grips, it's kind of frustrating to break.
It's super frustrating, right? Because
if I just tug, they just go with it. You know what I mean?
Exactly, but their balance isn't disrupted.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so, and that's a that the Galvao like the fucking like not scissor sweep. What is that? God damn! I've been out so long. I don't even know names anymore. The one that the hip
bump.
The hip bump. Yeah, the Galvao.
Yeah.
I hit it 4 times last Tuesday.
Oh.
One against Brian McKenzie. He outweighs me by 100 pounds. Not joking. He's grappling
Jiu-Jitsu.
me. Yeah. So like
I remember you told me that with I don't know if it was that precise sweep, but I just know the glee in your eye when you went with Xander and you had him in closed guard and you did like twice. You swept him with like
that's actually my lazy man sweep.
But still, it was like closed guard.
Oh yeah, that guy's
like,
got 40 pounds on me.
Look at these youthful, more athletic, stronger, bigger guy. Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, and then that didn't last long with him.
That's awesome.
But so yeah, man, that's where I'm at jiu-jitsu wise.
So I wanted to. We talked about this, and I brought the guy up so I could pronounce his name correctly. By the way, I just got a text from Dennis Gonzalez saying, "I need a pic of the schedule. I can't see it." So this is Noah HR to the rescue.
No customer service.
No customer.
Not even HR. This is a
so
CSR
let me text
level.
him this real quick. I have it like literally on my phone. It's the second photo, like in my reel.
Why can't he just click it and like it opens up as a PDF?
I don't know, man. I don't know why people don't see it because I see it on the website and I saw the post on.
When I clicked on the website, it just downloaded automatically in my download folder on my phone.
I don't know, man. Maybe on my iPhone it works. And anyway,
I have an Android.
Okay. I sent it to him.
Okay. Well,
so we're done. So good. This is I sent you a video. This is a video by a black belt based in British Columbia.
He is the
Rob
Bernacki black belt, by the way.
Huh?
He is the Rob Bernacki guy I was talking about.
Okay, it is Rob Bernacki.
Yeah.
His name is Rory van Vliet.
Yeah, RVV. Yeah, right.
So just RVV BJJ if you want to find him on Instagram. He has a YouTube channel that's really cool. He rose to fame. When I say fame in the BJJ community.
Yeah, like,
you know, that was his little moment when he did the breakdown of Gordon Ryan's float passing
before the system,
prior to
enter this
attacking
systematically attacking the guard.
Yeah, so before Gordon actually released an instructional where he talked about float passing, this guy actually did a breakdown, which he even said it was supposed to be a couple parts, and it became more than 10
whole series.
parts.
Like,
yeah,
it was.
And people have identified this guy's very analytical, very scientific. He sounds like an academic professor talking about jiu-jitsu. And I don't know how
very Danaher-esque.
I don't know how good he is in terms of as a competitive roller, but his concepts I think are really cool, and I like what he talks about. And he posted a video recently talking about choosing a guard. And
is it choosing a guard, or do you choose the guard, or does the guard kind of choose you though? Right? Like,
now we're already
because water finds the easiest way, right? Like, so.
Well, I saw it as this sort of. I immediately thought of video game analogies where it's like, this is my role play, this is my character. I've got to allocate them points, man. I've got to allocate my points.
You just leveled up. You got 4. What do you do?
Do I go into half guard defense? Like 2 points into half guard defense, or 2 guards into spider guard, or 2 points into close guard, or 2 points. And on a side note, he believes that you should prohibit close guard from the white belt curriculum.
Wow, you know what's funny?
Because it causes a stalling. Well, is that a Rob Thor? Is that a?
That's a Matt Thornton thing, baby. Shouldn't learn close guard until you're like a couple stripe white belt.
Anyway, the idea behind choosing your own guard was purposefully like look at yourself, look at your attributes, look at what you like, and focus on a guard, because that's going to allow you to perform better in roles, and it's going to allow you to not be thinking about a situation and assessing and deciding, but in fact attacking what you plan to do. Now, obviously, this makes more sense in the context of a competition where you don't really have time to diagnose. I mean, you do to a degree, but in theory, ideally, you are doing what you want to do, and it's move to move.
You're playing your game.
Correct.
Yes.
So I said it's kind of reasonable. Now, there's this conflict of saying I might be interested in doing the X, but my body type and structure and skill level might be more suited to learn Y, and I was just sitting there thinking like, well, what guard should I play, and what should I commit to?
But a big part of that too, right? Like, is like body dimensions and whatnot are only one factor. The other big factor is personality. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
So, like, you can't play a lazy, like, butterfly guard, right? That's why I don't play butterfly guard. I mean, I play butterfly half. But, like, because I'm super lazy, right? Because it just gets passed. So, like, Marcelo Garcia has an incredibly attacking butterfly guard style, right? Because that's what it lends itself to. And obviously his personality dictates that.
But the thing is that the thing that he brought up, he defined guard. He said guard is a range management tool. That's what he called it.
Say that again.
A range management tool.
Okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
And he did talk about, which I agree with this. He said, let's just go over some basic guards. There are more here, but just some basic ones. And I think he said basically it was like something like Spider, De La Hiva, or maybe I forget which.
Is it basically as you get closer?
Order, yeah, as you get closer,
guards are available?
which and then you get to you get the close guard, half guard, deep half. Those are being the closest, right?
Is there a hierarchy involved there?
Well, here's my point. Is truly a good guard the ability to transition, like
to use the right guard at the right moment?
Yeah, in the sense that. Are there many people in the world that are going to say, I want to play deep half when I'm sacrificing these other layers of guard? But like if I could keep someone farther away.
But that's just it, though, right? Like, it's sort of like the idea of, people always said like, the best anti-jiu-jitsu guy or anti-grappler guy was like Chuck Liddell. He was very good at, like, sprawl and brawl because he knew how to wrestle, right? So like, isn't that in essence you have to know how to, like, if you want to be that deep half guard guy, you have to at least be familiar and proficient enough in those other guards to be able to get to deep half guard.
Well, Rory RVV does mention that. I think his thesis is coming at it from the idea of development, which is if you want to develop the quickest, focus on one thing, learn those other guards as auxiliaries, and then as you progress, then you'll start filling in more and more guards as needed to funnel to that primary one.
But you have to choose something
first.
But
what he's saying is to develop faster, he's saying it's better to choose one and focus on that instead of just kind of rotating through a bunch of different things as you learn them. That's what I think his thesis is, that if you took two people and one focused on one guard and another did a whole myriad of guards in 2 years or 3 years, the single-minded person will have gotten farther.
Of course. I mean, isn't that like, that's just like Henry Ford, right? Like specialization.
Yeah. But his point is that the person will still be well-rounded at the end of those 3 years.
Because you're so good at because you're training with a purpose in mind.
Yes, but it's also the other guards are support to your primary guard, as opposed to, I don't have a primary guard, I'm playing them all as primaries without much reason. You know what I mean?
So that's kind of I didn't listen to it enough. I'm reminded I was like in the middle of doing other things while listening to it. What was his how does one select the guard then that you choose?
That to me is I'm wondering, should the coach just tell you?
No, because the coach isn't the athlete.
Well, I know that, but it from a development point of view, and this is what I brought up with you, and we wanted to talk about this on the podcast, which is like, would it actually help a curriculum if the just like a tutorial is in place now for modern gaming?
Yeah.
Right, where they tell you what to do the first few steps before you.
But that's just to learn the mechanics.
Before they release. Yeah, but the mechanics of guard. What's guard?
But okay. So like what is your definition of guard right now? Being a 3-year.
What's my definition of a guard?
Of a guard.
It's what you're going to do when you're on the ground, when you're on your back.
Okay.
Or on your butt, depending if.
And then RVV's was a distance management tool.
Yes.
Of being on your back, I'd imagine. Like we have to take it one step further, right? Because distance management. I'm.
Well, because he brought up boxing. You know, you can use the jab as a distance management tool.
But that's not a guard.
No, it's not a guard.
So, like in the concept of purely jiu-jitsu, his is it's a distance management tool.
I think I think we're under the assumption, like when we're talking about guard, we're talking about that set of techniques from these guards that we call guards, whether it's spider, lasso.
So my definition is a little bit more broad than his, but more specific than yours. It's when you're on the ground, supine almost, and your feet are between you and your opponent's leg or head. Excuse me, between your head and your opponent and their entire body.
Okay,
that's my definition of guard.
I guess deep half satisfies that.
It absolutely does, right? It's anytime my legs are in between your entire body and my head. Because if you've passed guard, what is passing guard by definition?
You get by the legs.
It's getting by the leg, getting by the hips, locking down the upper body, right? Controlling your upper body and their body. So to sit there and say the coach, first off, how is a coach in this day and age? It's not the days of, Helson Gracie saying like the only true jiu-jitsu is when it's a private lesson or the fuck it is, right? Like, how do you go in a class of 30 people going around and teaching that person's guard to every single person?
No, my thought process is my hypothesis.
I'm glad you're using it. I'm glad you're not using theory. Your hypothesis.
My hypothesis.
Your educated guess.
Would it be better for the second half of a fundamentals curriculum? So, for the final 6 months of a white belt's development, that you obligate that student to learn half guard with an underhook series, so that when confronted with any
whether
situation,
or not they want to or not.
correct, whether or not it's good for their body
Absolutely.
type. Because my thought is, if you instead of just, because right now, so there's some context for the people that don't train at our gym. Right now in the fundamental curriculum, we don't learn a guard. We learn sweeps from close guard. We learn a few sweeps from half guard, and that's it. But we don't learn a system in guard. And I know that systems might be considered a more advanced concept, but my thought process is, again, as a hypothesis,
That's
is that
fair to say.
because a white belt is so lost, they're incapable of. So what I'm also hypothesizing is that I believe that white belts are so lost, not in and of it, but just via ignorance, lack of experience, that telling them a few more steps and mandating that they take those few more steps before we say, now discover your jiu-jitsu, right? Because that's the beauty of it. That to me is what people find, I think, romantic about it. Even though I might think from a sports performance point of view, it might not be the best way to develop jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
but from an art, from a find your way, find your path, find your what you like, which people like, it's romantic, and I think it's beautiful.
But they do. And that's just it, right? Like we had kind of talked about that a couple months ago when the BJJ flowcharts thing came out.
Correct.
Right? Like, and granted, it's a tool. I think it's a very effective tool. To sit there, like me and you.
I think it's a really good concept to show people so they can think about possibly organizing thoughts in their mind that way.
Right?
But just looking at that's going to do nothing.
But if you and I are training, and let's say the academy's not open, COVID-19 takes over the fucking year, right? And the gyms are just not going to be open. And you're like, Chris, let's go roll, right? And we're like, let's work on something right now. And having something like, which I think the BJJ blueprint, or whatever,
flowcharts,
what is it called? Flowcharts thing. Very, very well organized in terms of like concepts, ideas, and like where you can go from here. We can just look at that and say like, man, let's just focus on this part right now. Like that's, and then everything else is sort of, because you said it yourself too, like jiu-jitsu in the teaching is beautiful, but in the practice is sort of like ugly, right? Like the ugly stuff just sort of works itself out if you and I have an end in mind.
Well, the ugly stuff I think comes from experience. Is that I think that's where an experienced practitioner, an experienced half guard player will feel how the opponent's weight is distributed. That the person's resisting, so I can't do my first sweep, but I can do this other sweep, and it still might not be. I mean, as the better he gets, and like I've experienced this, and if I've experienced it, I know you've experienced it, where I've timed a sweep and it feels almost effortless.
Yes.
But that's because I nailed the timing, and the person's center of gravity, weight distribution, all that was ideal for, and it was almost always set up by something where Kazushi, I pulled and then he pulled back, or I pushed and he pulled, that sort of thing. And then for that split second, that little window where he was ideally situated to be swept, I was able to apply the sweep and get it. And it's like, wow, magic, jiu-jitsu,
Right.
So going back to my deal with white belts is, instead of just showing them a few sweeps here and there, actually tell them, if you're on bottom, come to this position, understand these are the frames you're looking for, and teach a little more in depth around that, so that when thrown into any situation, even though what that might result in is everyone pulling half guard, which would look kind of weird, at that level. But realistically, not everybody's going to be at that same level. But in theory, if you're starting 12 people at the same time, that means by week, let's say month 9, when they're towards the end of being a white belt, they're all basically pulling half guard if they're on bottom. That at least gives them a shield. It's like you've given them they've trained shields to level 1, and they have a little shield that actually works.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? and then they can decide if they want to go down chain mail or if they want to get plate mail or if they want to go leather. You know what I mean? Like,
so that's an interesting thing, right? Because
plus I think half guard is something that is probably more likely to be useful for people of all body types.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it's definitely a good,
and a lot of people
position.
like to pass from it. So actually having some knowledge about it will probably help you, because right now a lot of people like to pass from half
because it's the dichotomy, right?
Oh,
like
yeah,
the paradox of half guard.
I watched that whole half guard instructional by Danaher. He talks about the paradox.
The bottom or the top?
The bottom. Half guard bottom.
The top just came out.
Yeah, the top just came out, but I'm sure it's going to be this. It'll
just be
he spends like a third of the
right?
time talking about the paradox. Like, I often encourage my athletes to go to half guard on defense, and I often encourage my athletes to
also go
to
on
half
offense,
guard
right?
to pass. How is this possible, dude? He brings this up at the start of every chapter.
But what is also the key to
pinning the shoulders? If you pin the shoulder.
But what's the key to a student remembering something is repetition, right? So
this is true.
I mean, that's a big part of why because he's preaching to. I mean, think about his audience is like two different things, right? Like, because he has such a unique approach to teaching and conveying information. I'm not saying he's. I'm trying not to speak for the entire population of jiu-jitsu, but not many people have thought about it the way he has to be able to teach it the way he does.
Now the big claim that's circulating on the internets is that the Danaher Death Squad guys are dilemma-based jiu-jitsu players, and not many people think about jiu-jitsu in terms of dilemmas, and that's why those guys do well.
So that's interesting, because we've actually talked about dilemmas, because who's one of the biggest dilemma players here? Nick Paul. Right? All you do is create problems.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Right? That's his approach to jiu-jitsu is, as by definition, a dilemma.
It's an either-or thing.
Yeah, you got two choices. You need to do this or that. Which door are you going to go through?
Yeah.
Right? But either way, so I'm 100% for your idea of working a system. Because
the introductory system.
Right, and then then you could fill in the gaps.
I mean, because
these are your big positions from here, right?
Because I'm not. Whether you teach systems overall, that's a separate topic. I think we're both in agreement that teaching systems is better.
It's efficient.
Because you need to understand learning a sweep from a guard only is useful if you already have that. If you already have that system in your head,
it's also
and this could be an
useful
addition
in the context of that exact moment.
Correct. Whereas you need to have a context of what are the main orientations for this position.
Ooh, you mean?
And what are the main reactions?
Perhaps you're talking about posture, pressure, and possibilities, Noah. You like that? What is the proper posture of each position? What pressure does each of those postures create, whether it's a defensive or offensive pressure, and what possibilities?
Well, you'd be happy to hear that RVV also has a big video about posture being critically important.
Critically?
Well, because posture gives strength to frames. If you have good posture, then whether that frame could be your entire spine, you know what I mean? So,
or just your elbow being in the right position.
Correct.
Right? That's
so. It's, I guess, the overall if for those listening, it's the past 10 minutes or so that we've been talking about this. It's kind of this. Okay, just to interrupt. Why is your phone? Oh, it was doing a blue. A blue outline thing.
Because it's the cool flagship LG G8X.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that was just a cool screensaver for your phone.
No, it's anytime it looks cool as shit, right?
Yeah, I was just wondering why.
It's just a notification.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It looks cool as fuck though, right? You don't see other phones doing that. Right? LG, man. People need to give it its due.
All right, fair enough. But my point is, over these past 10 minutes, we've been talking about it's a combination of being analytical about jiu-jitsu and also how does one accelerate their growth. And if mandating a little more at the beginning, is that a positive thing for the development of a white belt?
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that to a brown belt, because I guess, let me ask a different question to you, Chris, because you're the one that's been through this journey. and still on it, obviously, but you're way farther along than I am.
I mean, like,
at what point,
hours wise, bro, you're here
at
like
what
19
point,
hours
at
a
what
day.
point should the quote cuffs come off and a student should be allowed to explore?
That's an interesting thing, right? Because I feel as though they're and this is it's different for everybody's journey too. Like, we've discussed this plenty of times. Everybody's goal is different. Everybody's why they train is different. Whatever it is, right? Like, and I've said it a handful of times. Like, when I'm interested in something, I make a conscious effort to go like learn everything I can about it, even outside of the gym, even outside of the influence of Paul and whatever it is, right? Because like I want to become as much of an expert in that as possible. Does every student do that? No. Right? Some people, they just want to come, they want to train, they want to do.
Yeah.
So they have to be
absolutely.
told what to do. Right? Because not everybody wants to understand. Not everybody wants to. Some people just want the what and the how, not the why. Right?
So you're saying, are you implying that that at a very like course level, we could say there should be two types of curriculums?
No,
a curriculum
I just think
for the
more
student
should
that
also
is
be
self-motivated and will explore on their own because they have a genuine interest. And then think of it as, think about college, university. There is a debate. There's always been a debate, in my opinion. Not a debate. You can always find a conversation about curriculum in a university, and people arguing about how structured it should be. And people will point to the student that was kind of forced to be there, that is just going to take the classes that are mandatory and
Right.
and do the bare minimum and do what needs to be done to pass.
But at some point, they'll find the thing that they like.
Potentially,
Isn't
yes.
that the idea of
Potentially,
university in
yes.
general, is to bring together different...
Versus, and you have to give them exams or else they won't study and this kind of thing. Whereas, the good student, some professors are like, well, I would like to just let them explore on their own. They don't need to be tested. They are doing what needs to be done because they're exploring. I know a guy who opened this is not a college, but a private school in France, of the belief that there is no
It's like a Montessori college.
There's no curriculum. There's no testing. Students choose what they want to study.
And eventually become really fucking good at it, right?
And it works. And it works. For him, it works beautifully.
But
now, is he dealing with the general population? No, he's dealing with people that want that, so they're more likely to adhere to it.
Sort of like a self-fulfilling.
But my point with this roundabout way is, I was trying to think of the guy's name. I can't think of it, unfortunately, because I wanted to give him a shout out. But the roundabout way to all this is there a world where the best way to teach jiu-jitsu is you have the jiu-jitsu for the hardcores that like to it, that want to explore it, the artists, all that stuff. Let them explore, let them delve, give them the resources, and then have a more strict curriculum for the casuals that will still get them to develop farther than if they had to be, quote, exploring, because they don't have the self-motivation to do it.
So I think it's possible to do both, though. I don't think it's an either or.
Okay.
I think you can teach a very strict curriculum with like the way kind of Danaher says about like I'm a conservative about like certain techniques and whatever it is, and I'm a liberal when it comes to your
rigidly strict is the word I would use for
whatever he described, whatever the terminology he uses. It's possible to do both, right? Because like when you are rigidly strict about certain things you should and should not do, because like what is it, like you can't think outside the box without knowing what the box is first, or like isn't that the whole thing? Like in terms of like creativity, like you have to know
what the boundaries are.
Yeah, you can't shoot pool without rails, right? Like that's the whole thing. And like if a student doesn't even know what a half guard is, then he has no idea what the possibilities are. Right? He has to know like what a half guard is, what the fundamental structure of each posture within half guard, to be able to recognize the openings. That's sort of like how we've talked about with a student of, we're doing like some sort of like leg lock. And they're like, why can't I do this? I'm like, well, because then I would just do this, and this is completely exposed, right? Like they don't even understand that like where the vulnerabilities of each position
Well, that to
are.
me is that's something I experience a lot. Is I still experience it, but I experience way more as a white belt, where all the action reaction that I learned was from a proper practitioner, whereas I was rolling with other white belts and they would do a non-technical counter to the technique. It would work, and I would ask Paul, and the answer was always like, "Oh, I would just take their back then."
Right.
You know, and it never occurred to me because I didn't have the knowledge to see like
Exactly. So that's just it,
like
though, right?
now I think I have more of a capacity to recognize like, oh, if someone, regardless of the context, if someone ends up in this position, you can just take their back.
Exactly.
Right? If anyone's in this position, oh, you just fucking sweep them over. You know
Yeah,
what
like
I mean?
a simple example, right? Like we always tell, a really super example, right? Like close guard rules number 1. Like you're in somebody's close guard, we say like, hey, don't cross the center line because it's back exposure, your arms exposed, right? Like now, like once they understand that concept of like back exposure and submission attempts, they don't do it anymore, right? Like that's possible to be taught across the board for all positions.
Do you think we should spend more time teaching those kind of heuristic rules instead of, so I'll use the example of underhooks. I've never been taught explicitly you pass to the other side of the underhook. I've been shown passes that all apply that principle.
But that's just it though, right? Like so
I over time I was like, all I really need to quote remember is if I'm rolling and I get an underhook, I can pass to the other side if I can manage to do that.
And that's and I don't know where.
So should we be teaching that? Should we be putting more of an emphasis on that in a class to say, guys, at a high level, before we show these passes, if you get an underhook, we'll talk about half guard passing.
Yeah, half guard right now.
If you get an underhook on a side, that means you can pass on the other side if you can manage to do what you need to do to get your legs on the other side. We don't do that though.
But
should we?
But we should. Like,
okay. So you agree with me? We should do that. Okay.
Like, but we should, right? Like, just as, hey man, if this, like, I used to do this drill when I was like a purple belt for teaching goofy white belts and stuff, right? Like, I would say I would do this drill. You sit in my closed guard, right?
I sit in your closed guard.
You sit in my closed guard.
Okay.
Right? And then you put your hand in one of 3 positions, either across my center line, towards my far shoulder, up to my
collarbone,
up to my collarbone on the same side, so reaching up further, or hands on the mat. And I'll tell you what, man, I drilled like a bunch of white belts a handful of times. Like if it crosses my center line, you fucking fire that arm bar up. If it brings up this way, you stuff the other arm, you fire up a triangle. Hits the mat, you hip bump or you kimura. And that is so ingrained, just like we do position 1, 2, and 3, right? Like fundamentally, it's what position 1, 2, and 3 is an opportunity for you to block out the hips with the hand, or block out the hips with your hand, hip, or knee, right? Like that's all
Correct.
position 1, 2, and 3 are. And it's doing it without telling them why they're doing it. But once you say like, as long as you just always block out the hip with the hand, hip, or knee, they're not going to regard, right? Which is why when you pass somebody's guard and you start locking out their body, why do you have to block out their hip before you lock on the upper body? To prevent that regard, right? So like once they learn that concept of guard passing, everything else should be sort of like exploratory.
And I think what I'm realizing is you don't teach the physics of jiu-jitsu because that's not fun. It's more fun to show a move and then later have the realization.
Well, it's easier to show the move and just say. Like,
well, I'm just thinking like because the way you described it is like, okay, you're blocking out the hip with either your hip, your knee, or your arm or your hand, right? Well, that means when I'm doing an escape from side control, from let's say side position to a classic elbow escape style one, what I'm doing is for a moment in time, I'm creating a window where he cannot get this hip or can't get his knee.
His hand, his hip, or his knee in, right?
To block, in this case would be the knee.
Right.
I'm blocking the hip so his knee can't, and I'm moving so he can't follow me.
Yeah. Like
I'm not moving him, you're holding him, which is another important principle. And I remember JB emphasizing this. Don't try to move your opponent, move around your opponent. Yeah. Move yourself around. That's
don't
easier
move the rock around, move around the rock.
Or at the very least, don't try to push someone, but you can frame and hold someone. It's easier to like in this case, hold someone's hip and move instead of pushing the hip.
Right.
Pushing someone's way harder, but if you can just hold it, you can move and create the space and then get your knee in and then...
Right. So, like, I think if you sort of distill principles like that make each position work, then that's the most effective tool, because everything else is just minutia.
So for side control, do you think the other critical component is blocking the head or pinning the shoulders via the crossface?
Is that...
Because I'm thinking like...
So my answer is yes to that, right? Like...
Well, what I find...
It depends on what you want to do.
Okay, so explain to me. So this is something that you mentioned offhandedly, and I never, in the moment, because I think we're on the mat, got a chance to quiz you on or to ask you to go into more detail. You said, and I'm paraphrasing here, you, speaking to me, you guys have learned the new school way of getting out of side control, which is keeping the bicep off the face.
Yes.
Whereas I'm all about
framing and shrimping.
Yeah.
I've had a lot less success because of the new style of controlling the crossface. I've had a lot less success because of the more emphasis on controlling the crossface. But I think because, and you've talked about this too, is when you went to Globetrotters, like we have a different pressure style in side control than a lot of other jiu-jitsu schools. Like the first, you can ask Paul about this. It's really interesting. We learn positions 1, 2, and 3, right? Like
I don't think people learn to that granularity as a white belt.
Really?
At other schools, I don't think.
They don't, exactly.
At other schools, I don't
What
think.
they learn as side control is this bullshit, right? And I don't do it anymore.
What bullshit?
So it's what they'll do is like you're on your back. I have what we call position 1, 2, and 3. So head, side, arm. I'm cupping with a cross face.
And then you have an underhook on the far side.
And I have the underhook on the far side, right?
So position 2.
Position
would
is
be
that
that would be our position 2.
Our position 2, okay. So the first side control you learn in traditional jiu-jitsu is I actually have my armpit over your head and my hand is blocking out your hip. So it's like a position 4 for us.
Really?
But they're definitely never going to regard, right? Because that's the best way of controlling the thing. But their hand is free. It's sort of isolated.
I can turn on my side.
You can turn on your side. Right?
And I can push away with...
You can, yeah. So like, because heuristically that's what they're working against, that shrimping works well.
Oh,
right?
they're countering the old school escape.
Yes. So like, that's why I still shrimp first, regardless of situation. But either way, so that's all.
So describe the old school escape. What's the old school escape? Because we do the quote, I guess it's the elbow escape. We call it the elbow escape.
It's definitely an elbow escape. You're bringing your knee to your elbow. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
was that the old school escape as well?
Not as. So the old school escape would be sort of more shrimping and appealing to like half guard.
Interesting. And interesting. Okay.
I mean, and mind you, that's just what I learned.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
like, there's
yeah,
not
for sure.
like.
But I think there's some validity to what you're saying, which is that I think I'm fairly confident that this school is above average when it comes to teaching people top control.
Maintaining top side.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can tell you that with 100% confidence, because when I was teaching at Winter Springs, actually it just so happened that I was teaching fundamental whites, and for a month straight, all we did was fucking execute position 1, 2, and 3. And we had some guest students come by, and we're just rolling. And like every single one of my students at the time was like, God damn, like they were so frustrated when we got on top because they were not getting out from like top side control. You know?
So as a result,
it's a good system.
As a result, I think we've then developed slightly more sophisticated ways to get out from side bottom,
exactly,
because we're seeing good looks
right?
of that. Yeah.
And that's sort of like the Danaher thing too, right? Like he talks about like, and I think a lot of older school jiu-jitsus are sort of predicating their systems based on jiu-jitsu versus not jiu-jitsu, versus like I think we have a little bit more of a, Danaher talks about like I want to teach you the tools to be able to execute against high-level opponents of high athleticism, right? Like,
Correct.
this may, like, and that's, he says that almost every single time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where, like, I think the new school, with breaking pressure. But, like, you want to get to that point where it's jiu-jitsu versus jiu-jitsu. And I want to get back to that debate. Like, does that mean it's better jiu-jitsu and that sort of thing? And does it lose the intention of MMA jiu-jitsu? And
I just want to kind of bring up something that I think I had mentioned offhandedly when I was talking about my experience in the BJJ Globetrotters camp, which is, I don't have any perspective on what the level of that was relative to.
I think if you're paying money to go to things like that's it's
my
people
thing
who are. It's like the school that you described, right? Like, it's people who are paying to be there, so therefore they're already like more obviously financially invested in it. Obviously more, I would like to think, more emotionally invested.
Absolutely.
In it. So like they're more passionate about it.
But I don't know if those guys, I would say you might be able to go into Atos and the median level of your blue belts, purple belts, brown belts is going to be still significantly higher. But I think if you just go into a gym, your average gym, where there's a mix of levels and a mix of competitive versus recreational practitioners.
Right.
What we saw at the Globetrotters camp was probably above that at each of the belt levels, just because the people willing to spend money and travel to a camp are probably going to be better than average for their belt level.
It's my vitamin, or it's my extra credit theory.
Exactly.
Right? Or high value.
But my thing was, what I experienced was a lot of people, I was surprised at how few people played a smashy game where everybody I roll with here. It's like I roll with Hector, I roll with Troy, I roll with Mike, I roll with these. They want to pass my guard and get me into side half or side control,
top half, or top side, yeah.
Top side, and then either mount or work from there.
Yeah,
And these guys were, I experienced a lot more leg drags from people. A lot more back attacks from people.
Agility-based passing.
Yeah, there are more people that wanted to attack back than pin.
And that's just it too,
and that's
right?
why I said the rules where I overperformed, or I outperformed, or I over whatever.
You did better.
Yeah, I did better than I did. No. It's not that I won or it was on top, but the ones where I exceeded expectations, so to speak, was I went with brown belts. I even went with a black belt, and I'm okay. I'm not trying to say, but I'm doing the thing. Sorry, fuck. So I'll just go with it. But I went with these, people
who are higher level than you,
some big hulking guys that have more experience on the mats than me. But their games were the games that I'm used to seeing, so I was able to keep them off, and I got the confidence like, "Wow, your frames are really good. I couldn't get by those frames." That kind of comment.
Right, because the people that they're playing against try to regard the way I do, which is like they're just getting smashed.
And then I'm going with people that are like berimboloing me and doing all this stuff that I don't see as much, and they're doing things where, like I said, the warning signs in my head didn't go off, and then suddenly I'm getting tapped. So definitely, just to reiterate, if you're in Orlando and you want to learn top side and pressure and control from there, this is a pretty good place to do it.
That's because like Paul does approach it from a fighting standpoint too.
Well, isn't that the whole Carlson, Lebo
versus
lineage,
the self-defense versus fighting and like that? Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go reread the Gracie lineage. Way. That fucking word. But just from a Paul standpoint, like he was an MMA fighter first, jiu-jitsu player second.
100%.
And like generally accepted for fighting, you don't want to be on your back. Right? Like just generally accepted.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's just gravity, right? It's a place of last resort and you should know how to work off of there to escape it, but it's not a place you want to be. And I think that Paul's just really, really refined his ability to, and in doing so, his students' ability to get to top position and maintain top position, right? Because like gravity works a whole lot better in your favor when you're hitting.
That's like the first thing half. I feel like if you talk about like a system, that's the first system he teaches, and he doesn't even call it a system, but it is,
What's
because
that?
Again, I remember when I started watching the I think it was the first series the first fundamental series from Danaher was Pin Escapes.
Pin Escapes, yeah.
And I watched it and I was like, this is rudimentary. Like I was unimpressed because what he was talking about, not that what he was saying was wrong, but a lot of the content was stuff that Paul like right away moved beyond, which is escapes. All the escapes worked if the pinner, the person on top, remained static. And Paul right away, when he teaches side control escapes, talks about if you start to do this, the guy on top's going to sit on his hip to block you. Then you can do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's already...
And it becomes that game of like you cycle through these three different things,
Correct.
Until you can fucking find your way
if
out.
you're on bottom, you get the frame, or if the guy on top can
mount
reposition,
you.
mount you, or get take your arms away from you. And I find that that's what I've been doing the few times that I'm on top when I get to work top, because I'm still primarily playing more bottom just as a result of my skill level, is trying to insert my, not the knee that's covering the opponent's hip, but the other knee that's near the opponent's head, opening that arm, because they want to keep that arm tucked in order to help to escape, and finding ways to wedge my wedge of a knee and thigh into that armpit
to position 3? No, 1.
No, position 2.
Oh, yeah, to separate out, so you're belly down.
To lift, to basically lift, get the elbow closer
the
to
near
me,
side, yeah.
The near side elbow separated from his torso,
right,
and opening it up. Because the more you can open up, the less chance he has to escape.
Yeah, structurally he's not as strong.
So I'm like, and what's cool is I did a roll. I was struggling to do that. I kept trying to, just do it with my legs instead of reaching, because you don't want to reach with your hand.
Right.
Because then they can get a frame on that arm. And I'll be damned. Paul pulled me aside. He's like, if you're trying to do this, what you want to do is, and he started explaining the subtleties of how to open the arm, the near side arm of the guy on bottom as the top player without using your hand, and doing it by pushing their hips away from you. So pushing your hips away,
that space, yeah.
And then you get it in, and that allows you then to go. Now instead of shoulder on their face, now it becomes sternum on their face, and they get more and more, and you get higher and higher. Their arms open up more and more, and they're in more and more shitty situations, which, as people that roll with Paul, depending on the mood he's in, that's something that he might do.
It's either shoulder in the face, shoulder of justice versus chest of justice.
Okay, so now my question is, you say that jiu-jitsu is an extension of one's personality. That being said, a lot of people exhibit attributes as being good pinners here, as a result of that's not that Paul teaches a limited style. It's just that's one thing he's very knowledgeable in, and that's what a lot of people are good at. So we end up, that's something the school just happens to be good at.
Yeah.
How come you are the antithesis of that?
Because
I've only seen you smash once, and it was on when it was actually it was with me. You smashed me on when I was rolling to get my blue belt. I was being Shark Tanked, and then all of a sudden you sweat.
Because bear in mind, I was also away from Paul for 5.5 years.
Okay, so would you say your formative years were not with Paul then? Who would you say was who's been your biggest influence on you? And you can say Paul. I mean, I'm not saying But
I mean, I try to give credit where it's due. Ultra formative years. Definitely Paul, white belt, the very, very actually short amount of time I spent with Paul as a white belt at Gracie Barra.
Because Paul, I mean, if you think about Paul, granted he's been a black belt more now than he's been a colored belt, but if you look at his journey from white to black, Laborio came in when he was a brown belt.
Very, very late.
He it's not uncommon that you'll hear Par say, Marcio used to have us do this, or Marcio is pretty good at this.
He does talk about he talks about Gracie Barra.
A lot of so he's an interesting hybrid of Marcio's philosophy, which I don't know, but obviously,
I think
obviously
here's the thing is because Marcio's
Laborio's
philosophy is also predicated on early jiu-jitsu. Keep in mind, he'd only been Gracie Barra affiliated shortly after I even started there.
When you say he was, you're talking about Paul.
Marcio.
Oh, Marcio.
Marcio only became Gracie Barra affiliated after I started.
Didn't he found Gracie Baja?
No. Marcio Simas? No. You're talking about Carlos Gracie Jr.
Oh, okay. Well, then what did Marcio do? Marcio
was the first to do jiu-jitsu in Orlando.
Oh, okay.
He was like a taxi driver or something, and like started like this sort of like fight club in jiu-jitsu school.
Okay.
So it was Marcio Simas jiu-jitsu first, Gracie Baja, Marcio Simas second.
Gotcha.
That actually started. I started in 05. So like, he's probably started
and
Gracie
Paul
Baja.
was teaching as an instructor in Marcio's.
Yes.
And that's why you're saying in those ultra formative years of white and blue, he was there.
That's why I say I'm a Paul Rodriguez blue belt.
Gotcha. God dang, you were a blue belt for a while too.
He
held you back, bro.
Actually, I got my blue belt from Marcio. He had left.
No, I saw your belt checker. You're on belt checker.
Yeah,
Christopher Vu, if you want to see it on, or Chris Vu on belt. So you got your blue from Marcio.
Mm-hmm. My purple from Jose.
And then it was Jose Figueroa was purple and
brown.
And brown.
But Paul was kind of involved with that too, because I was kind of cross-trained between.
And then black was with Paul.
Yeah. So like, but like I would say, so and that's it. And it's no criticism against Jose, right? Like, I say that he's been my coach for a long time too, but like,
well, wasn't he promoted by Paul or was he promoted by Marcio?
He got his blue belt.
When you were okay, hang on.
Okay.
1 sec. When you were training under Jose, was he a black belt? Or was he a brown belt or something?
Both.
Okay. Who promoted him to black?
Laborio.
Yes. Okay.
So like, because and it's a strength of Jose, it's also a terrible weakness of Jose, is that he's one of the most badass people in Orlando with just terrible luck. And also,
so he's attribute based. You're saying he's like very
no, but he's good too. I mean, good technique wise and stuff too, right? Like, but his jiu-jitsu is very, very strongly based on Paul, right? Because like, black belt aside, Paul was the one who brought him up.
Gotcha.
Right. So like, lineage, if you want to play that game, like, you know, purple and brown, I got by way of Jose, but realistically, I got by way of Paul. So developmental wise, like. Admittedly, a lot of my jiu-jitsu journey has also been just straight independent learning, because keep in mind, like, I spent however long training, like, going back to Jose, a strength and a weakness of his is that one thing, he's got no ego. And one thing that when we all started, when they branched off and started Orlando Longwood, and I ended up with Longwood, like, Jose, I don't think he ever saw us as his students. He always, like, as far as he was concerned, like, guys like me, Cole, Bert, you know, Drennan, Devin, he was our coach, but I don't think he saw us as his students. Like, he saw us as his peers, you know? So, like, he never... The most coaching I ever actually got out of Jose was... man, you just need to go a little bit more schizo. But I would just take class just like, you know, everybody else and that sort of thing. So like, curriculum wise, I know Jose was training with Paul on certain days and he would just take that back to Longwood, basically. So like, I guess on a secondhand level, Paul is responsible for my development by way of Jose, I guess. Because I don't know how much Jose was really learning on his own. You know, but all of the other stuff, why I rolled differently is because I think because I was so off and on as a blue belt and a purple belt.
You did a lot of independent study.
I did a whole lot of independent study. Probably too much, to be honest.
It's interesting because that's kind of what JB told me. And again, I kind of wish JB was around. So selfishly, I wish JB was around because he's a great grappler and a good dude. But also because he told me a lot of stuff that at a time where I was like just developing my jiu-jitsu brain. Like I was like imagine a child that's learning to speak. Like I was just learning to speak, and he was telling me stuff that kind of registered, but would probably resonate or make more sense. I'd be able to understand what he's saying.
Are you able to think back now and appreciate what he was saying then?
Oh yeah, and I do think he was framing it at a level that I was understanding. He wasn't trying to talk above me.
Right.
But one thing he said offhandedly, and it wasn't, I don't think, at me. It was just a comment. It was just like, once you get to blue belt, he's like, you can teach yourself jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he made it sound like, and I didn't press him, but I'm kind of curious because I know he trained under a pretty badass dude in Washington D.C.
At the Beta Academy.
You would know. I don't remember the names of these.
I just know that's where he trained.
Okay, and so he had an instructor that pretty badass. Apparently, broke Nicky Ryan's foot with an Estima lock.
Jesus Christ.
Nicky Ryan must have been like 13 or something.
So he's the ultimate the old man bully. Like,
I mean, that's how I understood the story. So this is secondhand. So I don't take this as gospel yet, but yeah, he just made it sound like once you get to blue belt, you kind of understand jiu-jitsu.
I think so too.
You've kind of, quote, figured it out, the basic of jiu-jitsu. And now he's like, he made it sound like him and a buddy would just look at cool videos and drill on their own. And that's how he got better. And I'm looking at him like, but dude, you're like really good. And that's one thing. I can look back now. I would like to roll with him now just to get a better understanding of what he was doing, because I didn't quite understand everything he was doing. I just knew, as silly as it likes to say, if you want to rank people in the gym, JB was at the top of that pecking order. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like.
So for a guy to be at that level and make it sound like that was self-discovery, self-taught.
But I think you have to have the mind for that, right? Because so let me ask you, like we kind of talked about like curriculum-wise and like the types of students and whatever it is, right? Like there's like you kind of describe that college, like it's literally like a Montessori. There's no curriculum.
Correct.
Like something like that's literally what that is. Do you believe the population as a whole is capable of that?
No, that's why I was saying that you need the two. You need the spoon-fed curriculum version to show people how to do things. Sure. And then the people that are self-sufficient, that are self-motivated, that have the capacity to explore on their own, you let them.
I would like to think with enough spoon-feeding with tidbits of concepts that over time the student figures it out on their own. That's my belief.
And I think that it just depends on at what point can you let them out of the nest and they can fly on their own. And what I mean by fly, I don't mean do jiu-jitsu. I mean continue to pursue and develop without being told like play this guard, then go into this, then.
Honestly, like a blue belt. Like, yeah, that's a reasonable.
I think blue belt. I think
blue belt by then
I think
you have a good idea of what not to do.
Okay, let's put it this way. I think I've seen a fair amount of jiu-jitsu now that I've been training 2.5 years. Okay?
You've seen a lot.
And I think that's what you need in order to start to, quote, fly on your own, which now comes back to this whole classic thing of what happens when you become a pelt. You start to develop your own game at purple belt and all this stuff. That everybody said in the YouTube videos and this stuff. And maybe there's some truth to that. But I do think that when you get to blue, you don't know what X guard is. You probably don't know it at our school. You don't know what X guard is.
When you get to blue.
When you get to blue.
Not as a blue.
No, correct.
Okay, yeah, all right.
You don't know what butterfly guard is. You don't know. You might know a little bit about spider or lasso, maybe. But there's a lot of, quote, advanced guards that you haven't seen yet. I think once you've gone through the cycle of seeing those advanced guards, not mastered them or anything, and you don't even have to do them, but to be exposed to them, that to me is at the point where now you're ready to make a decision, because now you've seen a lay of the land. You've been, quote, shown the entire gym. You've taken the tour of the entire gym. You've seen all the equipment now. You've seen the hit room. You've seen the pool. Now you can say, well, I want to go into this room.
You just recently toured a Crunch Fitness.
Yeah, that was in my head. I said the hit zone because it was in there. It was in my head, so I used that.
HIIT room?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
The HII. But But that's my point. It's like
That's
you
funny.
need to know what's in the deck before you start farm. I mean, if you want to use I don't play Magic the Gathering, but it's like you need to see all the cards before you start creating your deck. Or at least most of the cards, because like there's always
There's a lot of minutiae, right? Like
sure.
these sort of intermediary
and
guards.
you can, and I'll be damned, dude. I find these very, like, I've never heard of these guards before on
They're
YouTube.
just like
and
the
I'm like, do
Falcon
these
guard.
work?
The Falcon guard's really just like a closed guard. Right? Like the
You
clamp
know?
guard is really just like a half
Or
guard.
you can find 12 move, like, yeah, do this and it takes 12 moves and you got him. It's like, great.
That's not a guard. That's a sequence.
Yeah,
though,
no,
right?
no,
Like-
I'm not talking about a guard, but I'm just talking about like a move that takes 12.
Yeah,
things
yeah.
to- a 12-step move. It's like the chance of you hitting that against a good opponent super low. That's why. That's why I'm starting to like just watch competition footage to see see what works.
Yeah.
And again, I think I said it last week. Well, last week we did not release that to the public because
At some point we will. It'd be fun. It'd be like a good B-side. I'm into
It's
the word
really
clitoris in
bad.
it. I mean, like
it's really bad. Is fucking Hodger. Hodger Gracie is the fundamental.
He's the
curriculum.
Occam's razor
You
of
could show
jiu-jitsu.
that. You could show that to a recently promoted blue belt, and they would understand most of what he's doing.
So that's an interesting thing, right? Because
They would wonder how come he can do it and I can't. But they would at least recognize what he's doing. Whereas if you watch the Meow Brothers grapple, you're not a recently done blue belt's not going to understand what the fuck's going on. Like,
No.
what are they grabbing? What's going? Wait, the lapel's going under his leg now.
So a big part of it is, I think, is extremely attribute based because Hodger Gracie, despite not looking like a hulking like Luis Barbosa or whatever it is, but he's like 6'8" or something, isn't he? He's huge.
He's 6'4".
He's 6'4". Either way, he's a big dude.
Oh yeah,
Right. He's refined it so much that like you can't stop what he's doing. But okay, my question to you is, if the Meows chose to play the same against people of equal size in their weight class, do you think it would work? Because to me, by definition, a fundamental is something that everybody should be familiar with and able to do regardless of size, whatever the case is.
I didn't understand the question about the Meow. Say that again.
If the Meows tried to execute what I think they can execute what what Hodger does against people of their own weight class, I think they would be successful at it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? So what do you think the differences are like?
I don't think they have the experience that Hodger. They have a lot of experience on the mats, but they've developed other skills. I think Hodger has made, like, he's taken the fundamental curriculum and he has sharpened those blades
Yes.
to absolute perfection. And I think the Meow Brothers have spent the same amount of time honing different weapons. So if you're saying if you suddenly gave them the ability of Hodger, but only their physical attributes, then I agree with you. But I think the fact that Hodger not only has physical attributes that probably scale well at his size and also scale well against opponents that can't make small... Like, he doesn't have to deal with small-ass dudes with short legs shrimping under him.
But they do...
Although he beat...
in comparable size.
There's a match between him and Marcelo I watched, and it just looked like he was just too big and strong.
You're right.
And Marcelo looked impressive. And Marcelo was doing all this cool shit, but at the end of the day, Hodger could just kind of
lock down, right? But that's just it. Like, but because of, I would like to think that because his game is so, and we use fundamentals a lot, so fundamentally sound. I like to think that if the Meows chose to execute like that, because what does he do? He does some sort of like Seonagi, or some sort of like an Uchimata or something, right? To a trip.
Or he pulls half. Or close guard.
Pulls close guard. He literally sweeps him with like a hip bump sweep. Right?
I mean, it helps that he has super long legs.
And then he either mounts them and like collar chokes them, or rolls them up on their side, takes their back, chokes them out that way.
Usually, most of the matches I've seen, it's mount to cross choke.
Right? So like, I like to think that if the Meows chose to do that, they could. Because I'm not sure that the guys who are in Hodger's division are...
I mean, I saw him just completely... He made Lovato look like me under Paul.
Right.
Like he went with Rafael Lovato, who's not a small dude.
Who's a world champion.
Yeah, not a small dude. And this guy was pinned and just slowly drowned him.
So like looking at it from a percentage standpoint, how much of that was just perfect structure and how much of that was I'm using strength in addition to that? Like he was out muscling Lovato.
I don't think anyone's claimed that Roger Gracie is physically at another level.
That's what I'm saying.
Like you know how people talk about Nicky Rod being this physical specimen.
Sure.
I mean, he's the classic. The guy's strong.
Yeah.
You know the low key, like the
low key insult,
the humble, the low key insult. You know, it's like you don't say the guy's technical. Like technical's like the compliment. Oh, that person's super technical.
But I don't know. I mean, like, so like what percentage? Do you think it's a solid 50-50? Like it's technical ability, game plan, physical attributes?
I'm not qualified to answer that question.
I'm asking. You know, like
in Hodger's case or just in any case?
In Hodger's case. We're speaking specifically about Hodger.
Is
it because his game plan is so good and and what he chooses to do is so
I have to think that one thing that probably doesn't get recognition is the fact that he has to be, even though you don't see him play X guard or any other thing besides close guard, that he has knowledge of those guards because he can defend against them.
Yeah, he's good anti that.
Exactly. So I think...
And defense is always easier than offense.
So, although I guess the one guy that gives him trouble was Xander...
Shanji?
No, Xander Ribeiro.
Yeah,
How do you say it? How do you say it?
Shanji. Who is, incidentally, Lovato's coach.
Correct.
His brother.
Yeah, the guy who's I haven't had my half guard passed for 12 years. The last guy who passed my half guard. That was such a... I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but I wasn't a fan. Like, I was like, oh, I know this guy's a good half guard. So like, there was like a seminar on YouTube, free seminar. 1 hour. I swear to God, it was all him having students try to pass his half guard and him saying, see, my half guard works. And I never really got any, like, I didn't see any instruction. It was just like, it was like, it's some, you come here, you come. You see, I do my frame, I replace. Done, boom. Super Brazilian, you know, almost like, you know, that it made me think of that thing you talked about, and I saw it with the Roll documentary, where they talked about the early Brazilians in Southern Cal. You had to take privates, and it seems like it felt like he was cut from that grain of.
Oh, of course, he's like
I'm going to show you a sampling, but if you actually want to learn, come take a private, you know, with me. And I don't know the guy. I really have no business, you know, saying that.
It seemed that way. And mind you, that's purely my speculation.
And hey, I'm all about I'm definitely, you know, the new school open source. Like, I like the old school. I like old school techniques, but I like the new school mentality of, like you said, open source.
I didn't say that. Did I say that?
You said open source. Yeah.
Oh, was I really?
Open source jiu-jitsu, yeah.
I'm very
where everyone, you know, the instruction, Lachlan succeeds at ADCC using what now is most people call...
advanced 50-50 or...
Not advanced. What's it called? Oh, I've already forgotten the name, but there's a name for it. But for this entry, you know, where he's entering from the outside into 50-50. And... what's the first thing he does? He does an instructional and goes over it in depth. So imagine that 15 years ago.
That would never have taken place.
Like, you win with this technique, and then you go out and tell everybody what you're doing. You know?
I think that's by design. Okay, so first off, I don't think that Lachlan's doing it out of
backside 50-50. That's the term. That's the term I've seen being used a lot for that. Backside 50-50.
The
interesting concept. You know why Lachlan likes attacking
he's a
quote,
PT?
backsides 50-50?
Because he's a PT and it's probably some more mechanically safe way to do it.
Because he thinks he doesn't like classical entries into leg locks involve getting the inside position, which is sacrificing a lot of position, especially against big guys.
Yeah, I can see that.
If you mess up, you're in a bad way.
Yeah, like it's
so. And this is something he said. Like the Meows have been doing this for a while because Meows play 50-50 in IBJJF. They obviously can't heel hook, but they have creative ways to get into 50-50 without and passing from 50-50. Meows like to go into 50-50 and use that. Obviously not to attack heel hooks, but to take advantage of the position. And they do that in gi. And I'm sure no gi. And backside 50-50 is an entry into 50-50 that doesn't involve inside leg position. You first go from the outside, and then you bring the inside leg in at the very end.
That's an interesting reverse.
So it allows him to not get stuck under. The classic is you go some sort of butterfly, you're elevating, you get into that was the quote meta. If we want to use gaming, analogies, the meta was
kind of attribute based, right?
Was saddle, was entries into saddle. How do we get into saddle? Well, before that, I guess it was out, but I don't know. I know more recently it was like get into saddle. What are some saddle entries? Oh, reverse X. You get under them, reverse X, you get into saddle, boom. But that's under and having to elevate. And there's some risk to that. If you try to do that and you fail, now you're flattened out. You're in shit street. This is, you can basically play guard from maintain distance. You don't have to get under the person so much. You do go inverted a lot, but you're going inverted with your legs still between you and the opponent. You're not you're not potentially getting smashed. I mean, I've tried to do stuff with Mike Sahibi, right? And if he smashes me out, it's fucking miserable.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I'm like, well, great. Now I've given up a crossface. I'm going to get mounted. Like, I'm going to have to turtle and now deal with back exposure and him getting hooks in, and it's just miserable. Whereas this, that never happens. You're playing guard, and you're working with whatever leg you want to attack.
What kind of guard, though?
So Lachlan plays K guard.
Okay.
Which, for those of you who don't know, it's basically it's like kind of like, imagine it's
like a scissors.
You're basically, when you do an elbow escape.
Yeah.
He's basically kind of doing that with his knee. He's inverting his knee and trying to clamp around your leg with both kind of like how people from half guard try to go for a knee bar. You hook the free leg of your opponent and you connect your hands.
Yeah. Okay.
It's that grip plus an inverted knee. Just imagine a dude just fucking inverting in front of you like a maniac constantly. Just kind of like, hey, like you're kind of on your knees or standing up, and he just keeps kind of inverting in front of you and inverting back and forth, kind of looking for maybe like an Imanari kind of thing, or a verse De La Hiva entry. But instead, he's not going under your legs. He's now chopping. I've been spending way too much time talking about this. Everybody's asleep now. Plus, I have the benefit of actually moving my legs in front of Chris and kind of showing him where people listening are like, what the fuck?
So going back to open source about that, like, why do you think he's comfortable?
Lachlan, that is?
Yeah. Sharing that.
Because I think he has the mindset of, there's no secret techniques anymore. It's not like, you train with this camp and there's something they do well, and the only time you get... First of all, I think it's also impossible. Like, we didn't have the internet. Like, think about in the 90s when Hoist was doing his thing. Or even before that, Hicks in the 80s?
Yeah. Like all those closed door...
At best, you would go to a tournament, you'd see someone once, and maybe you're lucky you videotaped them while you're doing it, and then you try to reverse engineer it.
Yeah, like the barriers to entry were considerably higher.
Now, everyone has a fucking camera. Like, everything's being recorded at the tournament level and being streamed. So you can watch again and again high-level guys hitting their, quote, A game. So what I think what jiu-jitsu instructors are saying and jiu-jitsu athletes are saying, because it's not as though they're making tons of money as it is, I can either let people reverse engineer it and possibly teach it themselves, or I can just get ahead of it and teach it myself, and people will pay me money to learn from it.
It's a very consumer-based...
I also think Lachlan sitting there is like, I'm not going to be able to do this next year.
Right, because people will figure it out, right?
I'm sure there might be a little bit like, if there's something that they're like, I don't think people do that. Maybe they'll save that for that, quote, big tournament. But once it's done, it's out.
So that's an interesting thing, right? Like, I've always wondered this about competitors, because I don't compete, so I can't speak for it. But, like, something like, it always struck me as interesting. You're familiar with BJJ Scout now, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know who runs it, but I'm familiar with
it's like a secret. I don't know either. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, it's a big thing. Like, nobody knows who BJJ Scout is. Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
It's a crazy, like, yeah, it's cool. There were people who were like, oh, maybe it's John Danaher, because you notice he never breaks down Gordon Ryan stuff. He only broke down. No, it was crazy. Some people thought it was for us a hobby for a little bit. It's this crazy fun thing.
I did not know this.
Yeah, it's really fun. But, like, he does amazing breakdowns, right? I don't know. It might be a she. Who knows? But, like,
Paul Rodriguez.
Yeah, who?
That would actually be super hilarious.
That'd be awesome. Like, he talks about, like, building his brand, and he already has. But, like, he does these, like, for example, something like the Dominic Cruz study, like his footwork studies.
The footwork, yeah.
He did the Ben Askren, like, wrestling meta studies, the Damian Maya, like, guard passing studies and stuff. Like, why aren't, like, if I were somebody who's competing against, like, Damian Maya, I would watch the shit out of those.
Well, do you think they don't?
I don't think they do.
Oh, I don't know. That's a strong case to make.
I don't think they do, man. Like, and I don't know. It's just a.
There's a cool Instagram account that I follow now that I recommend called Blue Belt Breakdown, and they break down in a minute to 2 minutes a sequence, and it's really well done, and it's not just for blue belts.
Are they like the Choke Lab ones? Like, those are pretty good.
I don't know if I'm familiar with that. It's Blue Belt _ breakdown, and it'll be maybe like an 8 minute. It'll be like an 8-second clip of a move.
Yeah.
That he just breaks down and draws arrows, and person does it. So it's cool. It's like
BJJ Scout Light.
Exactly, but it's like very bite-sized,
concise, easily
and I think
digestible.
It's I don't know why it says Blue Belt Breakdown. Maybe I'll understand when I'm not a blue belt, but for me it seems like I feel like a guy who just got their blue belt might not understand what the guy's talking about. Like, I think he's talking at a pretty sophisticated level, and he's showing pretty cool stuff.
Maybe he's just a really early. He's like, I want to score this.
Yeah,
I want to score this handle before anybody else.
Or I want to set the expectations low by saying it's blue belt breakdown, and then when I do a brown belt level breakdown, people will be like, "Well, how's the guy?" I don't even know if the guy. I don't even know if the guy is a blue belt that's breaking it down, but
so that's you had talked earlier about the UFC 250 that's coming up. I actually
Amanda
don't even
Nunes, Felicia Spencer.
Oh yeah. So what are you? Felicia Spencer's a local girl. She's from the jungle, yeah. Former business partner of Paul's. I actually don't know enough about her to.
Her claim to fame is
are they the headliner?
Yeah,
really,
main event. So her claim to fame is that she fought Cyborg in the UFC and didn't get
annihilated.
Yeah. They went the distance.
Did she? I'd have to
and then I think, and then I think
she won after that.
Then I think Cyborg went to Bellator.
No. Cyborg lost to Amanda Nunes.
Oh, again, and then went to Bellator. So
again, what do you mean? They fought twice? Cyborg's fought Amanda Nunes twice.
I thought Cyborg fought Felicia Spencer after. I thought Cyborg had a fight after Amanda Nunes.
I thought Cyborg was fighting Felicia Spencer for
Jamie,
the title.
can you pull that up on the screen here? Jamie, pull that up. So now we're all checking our phones here.
Yeah, let me, because I'm.
So I'm just going to look at Cyborg's record because.
Okay, you're right. Cyborg beat Amanda Nunes or lost to Amanda Nunes and fought Felicia Spencer.
Okay.
Lost
and that's why she won, and then she left the UFC. They were like, "Fuck you," and that, but there's like
there was a
contractual
lot of,
dispute.
You're not.
Anyway, so she didn't. Most people got destroyed, so
she outlasted them.
Yeah. So I think the impressive victory the most impressive one she has is she beat Megan Anderson.
The Australian girl. That's like
she's Australian or New Zealand. I forget.
I'm doing the thing.
Yeah, well, it's a big deal to them. So
I know.
She's from down under.
Don't hate me, Alistair. I'm sorry.
So she beat her.
Yeah, like handily, like.
And then she had another win. Rear naked choke.
Yeah, like.
Then she had another win.
And also is like, from my understanding, she's also a very incredibly nice, wonderful person too.
Who?
Like Felicia Spencer.
She teaches kids jiu-jitsu at the jungle.
Exactly. Like that's and karate too. Like she does like the karate classes.
So it's cool. It's cool to see. I watched the countdown to UFC 250, which is really, it's kind of a shame that like 250 is such a milestone. And it's not going to be promoted as a milestone because of the fact that there's no crowd. You know what I mean? So it's always cool to see a local fighter in the spotlight, especially in the main event.
Who else is fighting in the card? I'm wondering.
Cody Garbrandt is in the co-main event against somebody. I'm
his last loss.
I'm a big fan of Amanda Nunes, though. I just like her attitude, man.
Yeah, she's there to fight.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Professional. Doesn't even talk shit.
Dude, she said she wanted to buy her girlfriend, or I guess now they getting her?
I think they're married.
They're married now.
Yeah.
Her partner, let's just say partner.
Her wife.
Okay, they're married now. Okay, yeah. Well, I wasn't sure. That's why I was saying partner. She wanted to buy her like boobs, and I was just like, "This is
buy her what?
Buy her boobs, like get her breasts."
Is that really what? That's
hilarious. I saw that. I was like, "Dude, I like she is such like
that's funny.
She's so chill." You know what I mean? And she's she seems like a super nice person. Super respectful, and she's an absolute savage.
Oh my god! Like
so, yeah. I'm happy that a local person is going to be
a headliner.
Yeah,
like that's. Is it in Vegas?
It's in Vegas, I think, in the place
so
where
no more Jacksonville. Oh man,
I know it sucks.
It's a shame,
but it's going to be a tall order for her to put a dent.
You mean for
Felicia?
I was like for Amanda.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's going to be
against
tough.
Felicia, but I mean, Amanda's arguably the best woman fighter in history.
To date. Yeah.
So I mean, that's awesome.
So
I'll have to kind of pick your brain for a little bit because I didn't really get a lot of the over/under entries and whatnot and heuristics from the past 2 weeks because I've been inconsistent with jiu-jitsu. So I'll have to pick your brain for that before class.
I mean, the entry part was not. We didn't really cover entries. We only did if you were to be in a double under position, basically swimming under from closed guard.
Okay.
Obviously, you can get to that position I get that a lot when I'm in deep half.
Yeah.
And I drop them on their back and I end up rolling up into it. But there's a little about how to properly pin, but
pin
more
the
I think
and
just
direct their hips and that sort of thing. And
it's really not that. It's not that hard. They're just two styles. It's like whether you tripod and X-pass or whether you sprawl and windshield wiper.
Just like,
which apparently I guess is the more traditional way of teaching it.
And ironically, that's the way I taught it the other day around that one Saturday. So
that's that was good. And now we're doing the wing sweep, which is
that should be fun.
Yeah,
playing from the bottom. All right,
you're like
yay, back in time.
So yeah, man. It's
so just a quick review. You hit 315 for 3 today. Was it or was it the other day?
Oh, yesterday. Nice. 315 for 4.
For 4. That's
3
right.
sets of that.
Really?
That killed my lower back.
Oh,
it was brutal. Like I think I need to start wearing a weightlifting belt for those things.
You don't need none of that.
Huh?
You don't need none of that.
I don't need that?
Nah, man.
I don't know. I think it does. Well, maybe it's just a placebo thing.
From my understanding, it's just a reminder to. But then again, like if you.
So there are two things. There are two things. I knew this before, but I was reminded of how lifting, especially powerlifting movements, are very mental. And I know that sounds like just strength, Noah. It's like I was in a groove of my comfort zone of lifting here, where it was like I knew what the bar was like. I had my chalk. I had my environment. You know what I mean? And now I was lifting in, a gym that's playing like club music. Having people around, that doesn't bother me. The crowd doesn't. But the bar was different. The bar was slightly more narrow.
Okay.
So the diameter of the bar was a little less, so I could actually wrap more.
Do you hook grip when you do it?
No, really? But I don't have chalk. I didn't have chalk there.
Oh.
So I was doing this without chalk, which made it more awkward. And I was dealing with bumper plates. And here we have traditional plates.
Yeah.
So and for those heavy lifts, I learned to actually drop the weight a little bit. So for the longest time, I was always a lifter that would always place weight down. So there's always strength used on the negative.
Yeah.
And I wasn't intentionally doing negatives, but I was not letting the weights go bang.
You control the weight. The weight doesn't control you.
Exactly. You know. Whereas now it's pull, control a little bit, and then once it gets to about your knees or so, you just let it drop. Or a little below your knees.
I still can't bring myself to do that.
Well, I think it's good because it saves your energy.
Yeah, it doesn't burn out your CNS for sure.
The thing is that here I'm used to how the weights land, which is you have metallic weights that just die when they hit it.
Right.
Dunk. So then you can pull right away, and it's in a good position to pull. When you drop bumper plates on a rubberized surface, they bounce.
Yeah.
So you either go with the bounce, and now you're pulling with a bounce, which is cheating.
Yeah.
Or you have to let it settle.
And then you're doing essentially 3 singles. Right?
So now. But so the tension, I'm used to keeping tension in my body a certain way with the metal, which I can, because I'm just dropping it and pulling and I'm still under tension.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's bouncing and I'm actually I can't keep tension on the bar. So now I'm back to so it's weird. Plus it's bouncing and it's probably getting away from me. So now it's not right next to my shin. So there was stuff like that also got in the way. I think more, Paul uses straps. I've never used straps ever. And if I can't use chalk in there, which I don't think I can,
they don't use chalk.
I didn't ask, but I didn't see anyone with chalk. But I would have to start using straps. I just have to get used to using straps.
Well, I mean, so I was an anti-strap guy. I don't lift with straps now just because I'm.
Well, I believe if you're not strong enough to grip the bar, you shouldn't be lifting the weight. But chalk allows. But I think chalk is fair.
Allows you to
at least grip,
maximally use existing strength.
Because I sweat like crazy. My palms get sweaty, and it's going to be just slip city.
But then again, because you're the chain's weakest links, blah blah blah, right? Like your body very well could be capable of lifting far more with the straps.
Potentially.
But
actually, I think for
jiu-jitsu, and it's less muscle. You're concentrating you're having to concentrate less strength to gripping that bar, which you can. I don't know. But I think that's cool for jiu-jitsu. Are you able to partition it to other?
No, but I think that's cool for jiu-jitsu. People have talked about my grip strength being better. That's been doing lifting and being able to support that heavy bar.
I bet.
Whoom, lock it in, baby. So, how was your heavy single day?
I actually didn't do it yesterday because I did.
You did not do it.
I did triples.
Okay.
Because I did 8 rounds of kickboxing, 5 rounds of boxing, and then I decided to do triples. So it was good. I mean, I felt good. I definitely I felt strong. I mean, I could have gone heavier, but I chose not to just because I was covered in sweat in my garage, having done bag work and stuff, and I got up to probably my last set, which I did 10 sets of 3, 275, 285, 295 with chains. So my last set was, 295 with chains. 3 sets of 3 for that. So,
dude, it's so funny to be back in a traditional gym again. It's been years since I've been in a traditional gym. It's a fucking club. It's entertaining. Well, exactly. It's a fucking club. It's fucking entertaining.
Is it?
To see those stereotypes again.
Oh yeah, man! There's
the
Instagram chick.
There's the Instagram chick. Yeah. Oh man, I missed yoga pants. I know that sounds terrible. I'm single.
You're pig.
I'm single, so I can say this. Yoga pants are very flattering, and they look very flattering on the ladies walking in the gym. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah.
So hang on.
Yeah. Go with your thought, and then we'll wrap up our thought.
But there's the guy that takes 10 minutes between sets. He gets on actually Crunch Fitness has I think 6 or 7 Olympic lifting areas, Olympic lifting platforms, which is pretty good.
That's very good.
Yeah, it's good. It's better than the 24-hour that Paul used to go to.
How many do they have?
I don't know, but he said that
not that many.
Yeah, not that many. But man, this guy, he spent so much more time sitting on. We got through an entire workout. He had done 2 singles.
Of what?
Of deadlifts.
But was he a mega power lifter? Because sometimes
he looked like a normal dude that happened to do. I know guys, and I knew them. I still these guys at college that they look kind of normal, but they're in shape, but they look kind of normal.
As fuck, right?
But they love doing heavy deadlifts. That's like their thing. They just do heavy deadlifts. So there was, he had his belt off the side, so he's sitting on the weights, and he's doing, 405. So he's got 4 plates on each side. It's all puff, 1, done, put it down, and then sitting on his phone for another 10 minutes.
Literally 10 minutes?
Oh, dude, it was a while, man. It was a while. And that to me is not a bad, like, that's fine. Like that
because he's doing a single.
That's borderline acceptable, honestly. But the characters, oh my god.
Oh yeah, like,
dude,
there are a lot more people there to prove to posture.
So many people looking at one another. Like if I looked up, people were making eye contact. I was like, "What's going on?" It's like, I can understand why CrossFit gyms and powerlifter gyms are becoming more in style, because for those people, they like that atmosphere. This was a club, man. They were playing. It was like the music was like EDC, and
fuck that stuff, man.
And everyone was like, it's. I mean, it's part. If you're a single person, you want to go see that, So let me ask you a question. So you asked me a question.
No, I asked you a very profound question.
So ask me a question.
Hang on, let me pause. I gotta go pee.
You gotta pee. All right, we will pause.
I went through 264s.
We will pause for peeing. All right, we're back. We're relieved.
Dude, that 128 ounces goes. Whew.
That's impressive,
That's
man.
crucial.
Like I do 84 in a day, and
it's
sometimes
super
I'm
easy
not.
to do.
So okay. You have a question for me. Before you ask me the question, it's worth stating. I worked out a crunch with Paul. Chest day on Monday, International Chest Day. We honored that. Did some core, trained some jiu-jitsu afterwards, and I was on such a endorphin high. I'm still riding that.
Really?
Like it's training is so much fun. Like I hope everyone does some sort of athletic activity to understand what it feels like to have those endorphins flowing, because it's such a good feeling.
Everyone needs their thing.
And you don't feel hungover the next day. You know what I mean? It's a good thing. Anyway, your question.
So my question was, because you had talked about going to Crunch Fitness, and you've heard me say it probably 4 times just now. That shit's just a fucking club. Like it's a meat factory, right? Like, so my question was, and I posed this.
Did I tell you the story of the? Did I tell you how the salesperson was with me?
Was she hot as hell?
I mean, she was a woman, and she was pretty.
Okay.
So yeah, let me tell that story.
And then
So, Paul, myself, and Eli go into this, and we're looking for it's like a 99. It actually turns out to be you pay $1 and you get 90 days.
Really?
For $1.
Yeah, but then they bill you.
Then they'll bill you the annual fee of like $50.
You can get that waived.
Plus, $10 a month.
And that's for the basic, I imagine, right?
For the basic, which is always it has access to in terms.
Really,
of
you have access to lifting platforms on the basic.
Everything,
room?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought that was like only.
No.
Oh wow.
That's
okay.
if you want to do classes.
Oh, group. Oh,
yeah,
really?
So what you don't, and you have access to the sauna in the bathroom as well. What you don't have access to is like hydro massage room.
This is not sponsored by Crunch Fitness.
No, not sponsored by Crunch Fitness.
But anyway, so she signs you up.
It's a typical thing. Like, okay, guys, let me show you around. So they walked around. Let's sit down at the table, right? Okay, all that stuff. We did a workout and then we signed up and stuff.
They let you work out before you signed up?
Yeah.
Was your trial?
Yeah, I mean, she was like, well, you can do it now. And Eli was like, no, we're going to work out first. We're going to work. It'll be busy later. No, we'll work out first. So we worked out. But she definitely, as I told Eli, she had the personality of of a Hooters waitress, in the sense that I could do no wrong. As a male, I could do no wrong.
Right.
And my roommate, who's a woman, I told her like what happened, and I was aware of this too, because I was like laughing like when she was saying some of this stuff. When I repeated this to my roommate, she like confirmed that this like, so this is the
this
first
is what
thing.
They're trying to do, basically, right?
So she made the comment that, because you have a man bun, you're a more intelligent person. This was claim number 1.
She said it to you?
See, that to me.
Oh my god!
And I'm like, when did having a fucking ponytail make you a smarter person? So already I was like looking at her like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, at least I thought, because I was wearing my fanny pack, I was like,
so how far was her hands in your pants at that
I was like,
point?
are you gonna make? I thought you're gonna at least make fun of the fact that I'm wearing a fanny pack. It's like, no, I think fanny packs are awesome. My roommate is
so
like,
sexy.
that's bullshit. My roommate's like, no girl likes a fanny. That's total bullshit. She's like, they're super useful.
Oh,
like,
you're so confident.
I'm looking at her like, I'm looking around like, what? Are you like for real? Like, this is so.
And then Paul's like, fuck that, baby. She's like, you're right. They are. Like, actually, you know what? You're smarter because you have no hair. Right? Like, is that?
And then I said, I was like, well, you know why I got this? Because she said I have like 10 at home. I was like, okay.
Fanny packs? Yeah. She's the worst salesperson.
I'm like, what?
Why would you lie about things that are blatantly?
And then I was like, well, you know, I got this. I was like, I got this because I went to EDC.
Oh, you went to EDC too?
And then, yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I went to EDC too. I love EDC. I love that. I could have said like,
you could have said like,
I like taking shits in backpacks. Like, oh, I love doing that too. You know what I mean? Like it was.
Oh my god.
So it was hilarious. And look, hey,
some
she
people
got to sign out, and she didn't look. Yeah, I'm just gonna.
You signed up because the facility was actually it's for a price. You got a good value, yeah.
But I do feel like she was being a little, let's just say, overly generous with, oh, I do that too, or oh, that's awesome. I was like, yeah, and my roommate said, yeah, that's bullshit.
So that's the thing, right? Like it's an interesting sales tactic. And I'm surprised people fall for that, to be honest. But I think like there's a reason why guys go to strip clubs too, right? But like.
No, the stripper likes me, bro.
Yeah,
like, that stripper really likes me.
The
we had a connection.
Yeah.
We had a connection.
Like
Starlight likes me for who I am.
Yeah,
that's why she charges me the same as everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're like wheeling and dealing. But so my question to you, and this actually stemmed from, as most of you guys haven't figured out, I'm very nerdy when it comes to like a lot of things, and so I always ask the question to my friends prior. It's actually convention time now, which MegaCon is not happening because COVID.
Sure.
I was like, so what? There's the stereotype of like comic book guy, right? Of like fat, unkempt, just the guy from The Simpsons.
Yeah. Or there's a South Park episode that also
is there really?
Well, they made fun of but it was World of Warcraft, and they had the gamer, same guy, glasses, slightly balding, wispy beard, very chubby.
Sort of like, do they already display
on
sort of like
Tostitos.
Antisocial behaviors and in turn adopt like sort of like a counterculture thing, or is that culture already involved? Like, are those attributes already sort of like ingrained in that culture, and because they get taken interest in comics, they sort of like get lumped, like they'd start doing that, right? So there's no right answer, obviously. So I use
the question you
the
asked
question
me.
is, for like, let's carry that to the gyms, right? Like, obviously you just said it yourself, and it's sort of like understood in general, a lot of people at the gym are attractive people, right? Attractive fit people, whatever the case is. Are people at the gym hot because they go to the gym, or are they already hot and therefore they end up going to the gym to sort of like show it off? And I mean, like, I'm oversimplifying it, obviously.
Well, I think the correct answer is a combination of the two.
Right. I'm like I said, I'm oversimplifying.
I think it's kind of like a cyclical, like, imagine the recycle logo, right? It's like, but in this case, I just want two arrows just in a circle. It's like one reinforces the other. But the attractive person is probably attractive in part because they're fit, therefore they will continue to exercise.
Yeah.
That will reinforce the fitness side with enforces their attractiveness. And what we mean by attractiveness is, they're probably not going to be
over fat,
yeah,
not overweight, over fat. Right? Like,
so there's to that, but I also think there are more vain people because of social media that end up going to the gym to allow themselves to maintain that vanity on social media so they can post their selfies.
But were they there? Like, so just take away the social media part of that. Were they there already?
I'm saying people that, if they didn't have a cell phone and an Instagram account, would not have been there. So I think if you had taken those people and transported them 25 years ago, they wouldn't be there.
Interesting.
I think there's quote peer pressure from social media.
That's just because there's
for people to participate.
That's an interesting hypothesis. You really don't think that they would be in? So You think that the idea of working out and being...
Do you watch The Office?
I've never seen an episode of The Office.
Fuck. There's a funny episode of The Office, and I was someone that didn't like... I would watch a random episode of The Office, and I'm like, I don't get this. This is bullshit. You have to watch The Office...
With this continuity,
You have
right?
to watch it from the beginning,
Yeah.
and then it grows on you. You can ignore the first season. The fourth season is trash. They didn't find their characters. They'll admit that's...
Well, it's because they were literally like
They were copying the British version,
yeah.
and the main character, Michael Scott, who's played by the 40-year-old
Steve
version,
Carell.
Steve Carell, was unendearing. He was not it was not sympathetic. Then subsequently they made him still nuts, but with a sympathetic slant. So then suddenly you could kind of root for him. Anyway, there's an episode where everyone in the office was debating. They literally had shut things down. Who's the main actress from $1 Million Baby?
Hilary Swank?
Hilary Swank. Hot
She was
or
on
not?
the show?
Is she hot?
Oh, that's the
And that was the question. Is she hot? and there's a huge debate there.
That's pretty funny.
Half the people. And one of the people, everyone had to pitch their case. And one of them pitched a case. By classic definition of beauty, we talk about symmetry. So he'd drawn a grid over her face.
Oh,
it's look how what symmetry is. So I mean, when it comes to hey, are people, in the gym prettier? Part of their attractiveness has nothing to do with them lifting or them doing cardio.
Oh, I'll just.
Oh, are you I'm a body guy? Are you a body?
No. I'll just. I'll accept your answer as.
But I think it's a combination of the two. I think it's a combination of the two.
But okay, so my question is,
I also think a lot of gyms might not be welcoming to people that might want to work out.
There's a huge barrier to entry because it seems intimidating, right?
Yeah,
because
that's why there's a huge component of no judgment. A lot of gyms are this is the judgment-free zone, the no judgment zone, because
you know what, judgment-free zones get paid, right? It's just this sort of democratization of jiu-jitsu, right? When you take that elitism out of
we
it.
talk about bringing a new person onto the mat and how out of sorts they could feel when we just do a warm-up. We say, do a forward roll. And they haven't done a forward roll before.
Right.
And they're like, I don't want to feel like an idiot. Well, imagine not only you don't know how to lift or exercise and you walk into a gym, which
dangerous.
Typically, a lot of people just go in there and going to do it themselves. They're not going to employ a personal trainer because they're already paying the fee of going to the gym is all that they can afford or all they're willing to do, or all they're willing to commit. And they're not going to get a personal trainer.
Or all that they know, or all that they think they need to do, right?
And most people do that. I'll just go, I'll open, I'll go to the internet and I'll work. So not only are they not sure about the skill itself, but there's that self-consciousness of how I look. Imagine you don't, look great in yoga pants, or you don't look great in a tank top, or you're comparing yourself to these people and you feel, and let's be honest, there are plenty of assholes out there that are going to be like, what the fuck is this,
this yokel?
What the fuck is this guy doing here?
I think you're answering my question for me, right? Because
which is why you said, but you actually said at the beginning, it's a club.
It's a club.
Going into the club.
It's a dance club. It's a club.
Which is why it's so fucking weird. Whenever Paul goes in there, he gets stopped. People that was the other one. She said she had seen him fight in the UFC. I was like, you haven't seen him fight on the UFC.
I'm like, did you watch it 19 years ago?
I saw you on TV. I saw you on TV.
You know what it is? People think he's Frankie Edgar.
That's what we already said that. You think he's Frankie?
You think he's Frankie Edgar, right? That's what it is. So I think that's happened to him when he's cornered fighters and people,
So it's yeah, it is what it is.
Is this a better podcast than the last one?
Way better.
I think so too.
Way better. What are your goals for today's class?
I just want to pick up whatever we're learning.
Okay.
I want to catch up, man.
Are you planning to? What's your new schedule? Are you going to be training?
It's probably either
Monday, Wednesday, or just Monday?
Either Monday or Wednesday and Saturday.
Plus your Tuesday, Thursday, 6 a.m.
Plus Tuesday, Thursday, yeah. So that's I'd really like to get here Monday, so I can
know how to
teach
what's going to teach
or Tuesday, Thursday.
So, for those of you that are listening that are members of our gym, if you train at 6 a.m., 6 a.m. is back online.
Back online, yes,
with
sir.
Chris, with Tommy, with Kali, with the cast of characters. In theory, the most black belts on the mat of any class here at ATT Orlando, the Tribe. So I'm just going to enjoy jiu-jitsu, man. Roll and have some fun.
Today's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Well, Chris, I'll let you go. We got to get ready. And, I will say this. If you listen this far, if you're on our social media, you'll start to see that our brand image is going to be changing. I haven't updated the podcast logo yet, but Instagram has been updated. And that's part of an exciting kind of rollout we're doing. We're updating our logo. We're doing some branding, maybe some merchandising at some point.
Ooh, Shopify.
Yeah.
Or what is that? Yeah.
So it's going to be fun.
T-Club, whatever it is.
We have another
pretty
thing
big announcement.
Pretty big thing in the works. I don't want to spoil it because I'm a big believer in
just
doing
let it
first.
Let it
happen instead of promising. You know, how many times does Paul say he's going to post the schedule?
It happened.
It did happen. Well, you know the story behind that?
You got to click it and then,
Yeah, but you know the story behind that?
No.
He's okay. Well, I thought he said he was supposed to post it last week, but he kind of changed his word on that one. But he left his laptop at the Ale House Saturday night.
Oh no!
Which had the new schedule on.
Oh my god! That shit went backed up on something.
No, he got it. He got it from the Ale House, but he got it the following night.
Oh, okay.
Which is why there's a delay in getting that thing posted.
Well,
but the new schedule, ATTOrlando.com.
Scroll to the bottom. It'll download as a PDF.
You can download the PDF. You can also check the Facebook.
No, if you click it automatically either opens up in a window or downloads.
Or downloads PDF. So. Anyway, nobody heard this that probably needs that information.
That should have been
whatever we put out there.
But
yeah, check out the new logo,
new schedule,
and new logo for us, new schedule for the gym, and we will catch you on the mats.